Hello, my name is Sophia. I am 17 years old, and today is my wedding day. I know some of you may think you are too young to get married. In many places, that is true. But in my family and culture, this is normal. I grew up in a small village. Life here was simple. The seasons changed, the plants grew, and girls got married. It was normal, like the sunrise. I saw my cousins get married, my neighbors too, even my big sister. Now it was my turn. My family was not cruel. They loved me very much. This marriage was meant to give me a safe life, a better future. They chose a good family. They chose a young man who was known to be responsible. His name was Elios. I had only seen him once, from far away, at a village event. He seemed quiet. That was all I knew. But I did not feel safe. I felt scared. The wedding was coming soon. For many nights, I could not sleep. I just lay in bed and listened. I heard the crickets outside. I also heard the voices in my head. These voices came from stories I had heard. Older women talked in the kitchen. Girls my age whispered and laughed in fear. They talked about the first night, the wedding night. Some stories were full of romance, a gentle husband, a beautiful start. But other stories were dark. They talked about pain, about things girls must do, even if they are afraid. About men who were not kind. They talked like the bride's fear was just a small, unimportant thing. These dark stories stayed with me. They were like shadows in my mind. What if he is rough? What if he doesn't like how I look? What if I start to cry? Will he get angry with me? What if I'm just not ready for this? These questions had no answers. My mother was a wonderful woman. She was warm and kind. But we did not talk about such things. It was not our way. You were taught how to cook. You were taught how to keep a home clean. You were taught to be respectful. But no one taught you how to be a wife in that secret, closed room. No one prepared you for the moment when you are suddenly alone with a man you barely know, a man who is now your husband. The wedding day came like a big storm. Everything was fast. My home was filled with people, family, friends, neighbors. Everyone was laughing. Everyone was celebrating. Food was cooking. Music was playing. It was a happy day. For everyone, but not me. They dressed me in a red dress with gold flowers. It was heavy, but very beautiful. They put jewelry on me, big necklaces, long earrings, and shiny bracelets. They said I looked like a queen. I smiled for them. It was the hardest thing I had to do all day. My smile was like a mask. Inside, I was a storm of emotions. I felt a deep sadness. I missed the girl I used to be. The girl who ran in the fields with her friends. The girl who listened to her father's stories in the evenings. That girl was disappearing today. In her place was a bride, a wife, a stranger. Then it was time to leave my family's home. I hugged my father. He held me tight, and his eyes were wet. I could not look at him. If I did, I knew I would break down completely. Then I went to my mother. I put my head on her shoulder. The familiar smell of her clothes, a scent of spices and safety, it made me want to cry. She held me and whispered in my ear, "Be strong, my Sophia. You have a good heart. Let your heart shine. You are not alone." I tried to be strong. I nodded. But a small tear escaped and rolled down my cheek. I wiped it away quickly. No one must see a crying bride. It is bad luck, they say. They took me to a car. I sat in the back seat. The door closed. The sound of my home became quiet. My new life had started. The journey to my husband's house was short, but for me, it felt very long. When we arrived, I was welcomed with more music and more smiles. Elios's family was kind. His mother hugged me. His sisters took my hand. They led me inside. Their house was bigger than mine. It was full of new smells, new faces. I looked down. A good bride should be shy, but I was not just shy. I was scared. My hands were cold. My mouth was dry. I smiled. I nodded. I did everything a new bride should do. The night felt long and confusing. I sat on a chair with flowers while guests came to give their blessings. I felt like a doll on display. Beautiful, silent, lifeless. Then, one by one, people began to leave. The music softened. A quiet tension started to fill the air. I felt the room change. I knew what would happen next. An older woman, one of Elios's aunts, took me to a room. She opened the door and gently pushed me inside. "This is your room now," she said with a smile. Then she closed the door behind me. The sound of the lock was very loud. I was alone. The room was beautiful. I have to admit that. It was clear they had prepared it with care. The air smelled sweet. There were fresh roses and candles. The bed was big and covered in a silk blanket. There were red rose petals on the white pillows. The light was soft, coming from two small lamps on either side of the bed. It should have been romantic. It should have been perfect. But to me, it felt like a beautiful prison. I walked slowly to the bed. My heavy dress made it difficult. I sat down carefully. My hands were folded in my lap. My back was straight. My eyes were fixed on the floor. I waited. Time moved slowly. Every second felt like a minute. Every minute felt like an hour. I could hear my own breathing. I could hear my heart beating fast. I started to pray. I prayed to God to keep me safe. I prayed that Elios would be a kind man. I replayed my mother's words in my head. Be strong, Sophia. Be strong. And then I heard footsteps outside the door. My whole body became still. I stopped breathing. The door handle turned. The door opened slowly. He came in. My husband, Elios. He was tall. I knew that. But in that room, he looked even taller. He closed the door behind him, very gently. The soft sound of the lock was so different from the harsh one I heard before. He didn't look at me at first. He just stood by the door for a moment, as if he was nervous too. My eyes were still glued to the floor. It was a way to avoid looking at him. I was too scared. I thought about all the bad stories I had heard. He walked slowly across the room. I could hear the sound of his shoes on the floor. He didn't come straight to the bed. He walked over to a small table in the corner. I heard the sound of water being poured into a glass. Then he walked near me. He stopped a few feet away. I could see his shoes in my field of vision. He didn't sit down. He just stood there. The room was quiet. It was a heavy silence. I thought I might faint. Then he spoke, and his voice was not what I expected. It wasn't loud or demanding. It was quiet. It was gentle. Sophia, he said. My name on his lips was strange. I know this is scary. I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. His face was kind. His eyes were soft. There was no anger there, no impatience. He was looking at me with concern. He continued, his voice still low and steady. I won't force you to do anything. I just want you to feel safe with me. That is the most important thing tonight. His words were like cool water on my fear. The fear did not go away, but it became smaller. I just stared at him. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was not like the dark stories. This was not the monster from my nightmares. He held out the glass of water. You must be thirsty, he said. I nodded. I could not speak. I reached for the glass. Our fingers touched each other for a second. It was a tiny touch, but I felt a warm feeling went through my entire body. It wasn't an electric shock of fear. It was a gentle warmth, like standing in the sun. My face became hot. I think I was blushing. I drank the water. It helped my dry mouth. He sat on the bed, but not too close to me. He gave me space. I saw him properly then. He looked nervous too. He played with his hands. He had a sweet, shy smile on his face. Maybe I had the same smile. You're very young, he said softly. I know this day was probably too much. This is a lot to feel. He looked at me, his eyes full of understanding. I don't want to take anything from you, Sophia. I want to build a life with you, and we can start that tomorrow or the day after. We have our whole lives." I looked into his eyes, and I saw something I did not expect to see. I saw peace. I saw honesty. I saw a friend. "I was scared," I said in a small voice. "I heard stories. I thought it would be very hard." He nodded slowly. He understood without me needing to explain everything. "It's okay to be scared," he said. "To be honest, I was scared too." Then he laughed a little. It was a small, nervous laugh. Hearing it, I laughed too. It was a tiny sound, but it broke the heavy tension in the room. The ice was broken. That night, we did not act like husband and wife. We acted like two people who wanted to be friends. We talked for hours. He told me about his school, about a teacher who slept in class. I told him about my cooking. He told me about an embarrassing time when he fell off a bike. I told him about my secret dreams. We shared the small, simple things that make us who we are. With every story, the fear inside me melted away a little more. I was not a bride sitting with her husband. I was just Sophia, and he was just Elias. After a long time, he asked gently, his voice almost a whisper, "Can I sit closer?" The fact that he asked, it meant everything. He wasn't taking, he was asking. I smiled, a real smile this time. It reached my eyes. "Yes," I said. He sat next to me. He gently took my hand. His hand was warm and dry. His thumb gently rubbed the back of my hand. My heart was still beating fast, but it was no longer a drum of fear. It was a flutter of something new, something hopeful, comfort, warmth. He didn't rush anything. He didn't push for more. Every word he spoke was kind. Every small movement was gentle. Before he did anything, he would ask, "Can I put my arm around you? Are you okay? Tell me if you want me to stop." And in that room, full of roses and soft light, I understood something. The wedding night, the first night, it's not about what happens to your body. It's about what happens to your heart. It's about feeling safe. It's about building a bridge of trust between two souls. It is the beginning of a promise to be respected, a promise to understand, a promise to listen. I did cry that night, but my tears were not from pain or fear. They were tears of relief, tears of peace. I cried because the monster I had feared for weeks did not exist. I had not married a stranger who wanted to claim me. I had married a man, a good man, a man who saw me, Sophia, the person, not just a bride he was given. He just held me while I cried. He rubbed my back and whispered, "It's okay. Everything is going to be okay." And I knew that it would be. Thank you for listening to my story. My journey started with fear, but it found kindness. It taught me that true strength is found in gentleness and respect. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Subscribe for more emotional and inspiring stories where we learn English together through the feelings that connect us all.